To the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. My name is Marty Saltzman, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. We are a welcoming congregation united on the side of love and justice. We are a community of people who embrace a common drive to live a rich life filled with gratitude, kindness, and the desire to make the world a better place. We embrace our differences and like to say we don't have to think alike to love alike. Our mission statement is printed on the front of the order of service, and the 8 UU principles are inside. It is our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors, or those of you who have not been here for a while. We ask you to stand if you are comfortable and introduce yourselves and tell us where you are from. Is there anyone on this side who's new?
My name's Sam, and I'm visiting from Durham.
Anyone else over here? Welcome. How about on this side?
Hi, I'm Ashley, and we're in Swannanoa, and this is Isabella.
Hi, welcome. Welcome. Anyone else?
My name is Bill, and I'm from Brooklyn.
Sorry. Well, greetings. If you would like to receive our newsletter, and want to know more about us, please fill out one of these white cards, which are in the back of pews or the foyer out front, and leave it on the table out front so we can get in touch with you. Now I'd like to read our land acknowledgement statement. UUCSB acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous people. The Cherokee, through stewardship, understanding, and conservation, survived and thrived in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. And finally, I have a brief announcement, and so does Mary. So the first one is from Carolyn Shorkey. She asked that we keep our veterans in mind when we do our holiday baking this week. We invite everyone to bring a generous plate of homemade cookies to church on December 24th, that's Christmas Eve, or deliver them during our office hours this week. Following the Christmas Eve service, we will have a cookie reception. After the reception, Carolyn and Milt will deliver your donated cookies to the Veterans Restoration Quarters in East Asheville. This is a project operated by ABCCM to transition homeless veterans toward permanent housing. About 250 veterans receive meals, housing, and programming daily. So let's brighten their Christmas meal with some festive homemade cookies. Sounds great. And Mary?
We had our auction, and we made a great deal of money, and we gave this check to Bounty and Soul. I'm a volunteer at Bounty and Soul, and we fill 600 boxes of fresh fruits and vegetables, and we give them away free, no questions asked. So you're part of that, and I wanted to say thank you.
Okay, now, and let our service begin.
Wow. Did I just break this, Larry?
Nope.
You can? Okay. My stomach, no, just joking. I want to thank you for your thoughts and prayers for me when I had my first and hopefully last bout with COVID. I got to tell you, boy, that Clorox really worked. I almost killed myself, but no, I'm joking. I just want to thank you for the energy you sent. It worked, so there you go. Our opening words this morning are from Unitarian Universalist Jill and Turtlinger. So, I've never heard of Sister Turtlinger, but she's made a contribution to our both of ceremony. So, she says, for the longing that told you it was time for a change, for the courage it took for you to answer the call, for the choices already made, and for the daily choices that will shape the life ahead of you, for the communities that have shown you who you are, and the new communities waiting to discover you in your new ventures, for the great mystery of what lies ahead. May you always see something of beauty along the way. May you touch hands with those you love and always give more than you get. So, with that in mind, please rise as you are willing and able, and join in singing our opening hymn this morning, number 26, Holy, Holy, Holy.
Holy, holy, merciful
All righty. Our responsive reading, number 629, in the back of the gray hymnal. We'll read responsively, called Hanukkah Lights. We gather in the chill of winter solstice, finding warmth from each other, nourishing hope where reason fails.
Grateful for small miracles, we rejoice in the wonder of light and darkness and the daring of hope.
Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation.
You made us holy with your commandments and called us to kindle upon our hearts.
Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation.
You perform miracles for our ancestors in days of old and this season.
Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation.
You have kept us alive, you have sustained us, you have brought us to this moment.
Okay. How nice. All I can say is we have a wonderful treat. So be ready. Yes, I see. Are you coming back? You're not gonna come
Sing and joy to
This is the time in the service when we invite you to come and share a joy, a concern, a sorrow. Diane will light your fire, or you can light your own. And the mic is on, and Diane is there, and the floor is yours.
My name is My name My name is Poosh. I just want to express my appreciation. So many years of my life, this time of the year, anywhere I would go, it's Christmas, 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 Christmas. But there's a Hanukkah menorah, and I appreciate it.
I'm Andy Reed, and I have 2 candles of sorrow. One for the passing of Larry Fincher, who was a singer in the Ali Chorus and whose daughter Catherine has long been a great friend of mine. And the other, as a gay man, I've never had in-laws, but I had outlaws. And my ex-mother-in-law, or mother-outlaw, died on December 3rd. She was a wonderful lady, Shirley Andrews, and I just want to light a candle of remembrance for her as a wonderful, caring spirit who is no longer with us. And then to counter that, I would just like to light a candle of great joy at all the wonderful people who are still with us, and many of whom we see here, and who make life so good.
Hi, I'm Marty again, and I want to light a candle of joy that my son-in-law Josh Hiller, who's been in Columbia Presbyterian for 2 weeks with 3 congenital heart issues, had a defibrillator pacemaker installed yesterday, or the day before yesterday, and he's home. Has another serious surgery coming up, but with all the good thoughts and prayers going in this direction, I hope that will keep him going. And also, please send some healing energy to 3 of my other friends who are struggling with terminal illness, Glenda Larson, Rick Clemenson Keep, and Sanjay Sood. Hopefully, a lot of these issues will be resolved. I don't mean to say terminal, but they're life-threatening issues. Thank you.
I'm Jim Twillen. I have 2 joys. First of all, this past week, I was honored to be asked to help organize the reception for Dr. Will Hamilton's funeral, which was yesterday. And it was an amazing high Episcopal 90-minute service that I survived. And the reception was just fine too. So in honor of Dr. Will, who was a fellow hiker and a loved person in Fairview. And the other big joy is one of thanks to Molly, because on Monday I get to meet Jace's new family, since she put me in touch with the new parents. And tonight we get Finley's family for dinner. And as you know, I've been doing respite care for Gaddafi, our 2-year-old foster child. I get to see him 3 times, including Christmas morning.
Hi, my name is Larry Perlman. I like to light 2 candles of sorrow and 3 candles of joy. The 2 candles of sorrow are for my brother, Robert Perlman, my sister, Carol Winkler, both got COVID last week. They're doing okay, but they're in the recovery process. And my 3 candles of joy, well, 2 of those are that they are doing okay and coming back to normal. And then my 3rd candle of joy is what Mary mentioned. We had a wonderful ceremony last week to present the check to Bounty and Soul from the auction, and I was very happy that Michael came to represent us, and also that Mary spent an inordinate amount of time making that giant check. Really appreciate it.
I just want to ask people to remember and think about, my name is Sue, my husband Kadir, whom some of you know, and he's living with dementia and physical issues. He's living now in Brookdale, Walden Ridge, and hates it. And if you're ever down in South Asheville and feel like stopping by and just if you have nothing to talk about, just ask him what one of his paintings are about. I'm asking that we think about his inner strength, which is not affected by dementia, and that continues to be in the light, and may that be true for all of us. Thank you.
Going once, going twice. So, for those of you, thank you, Diane. For those of you who, for whatever reason, didn't want to come up, we light a candle for you, and we keep you in our thoughts and in our prayers. As we close out the year, what a year it has been, I want to share with you this reading called On the Hinge of the Year. So I invite you to center yourselves as you always do, and as you see fit, and afterwards we will have a time of quiet. We are living on the hinge of the year, swinging from season to season. There are moments of depression as we recall summer pleasures past, and times of apprehension as we prepare for winter's problems. We know there is little we can do about either. We know nature will keep unfolding as it should, and her creatures will simply have to adjust. We are living on the hinges of the years too. As we swing through our short seasons of being, marveling at the ever-changing view. Every day is a hinge in our lives. We keep turning, opening the door of each new day, not really knowing what it will bring. Sometimes our hinges are rough with rust, and turning is difficult. Sometimes our hinges turn with facile touch, and we welcome what is beyond each new door. There are times we would like to stop, to cease turning, to be able to hold the door still just for a moment, to savor the day and the night of now. In our wiser moments, we know the turning will continue, for we live on the hinge of the seasons of life. May our turning be for joy. And now, while our minds are one for this brief moment, I will leave you with the eloquence of silence. so it is. My favorite philosopher, William James, reminds us that the greatest use of life is to spend it on something that will outlast it. And so in that spirit, we collect this morning's offering. Okay. I want to talk about Hanukkah. I'm going to talk about a story. I'm going to collect the money. We need the money. Thank you for your generosity. Wow. I always say you can never say I'm in it for the money. Because I'll forget. Sometimes I forget to ask for it. Now I forget to accept it. Okay, yeah, Hanukkah's a little more complicated than, like many of the biblical stories, Hanukkah's a little more complicated than we've been led to believe. And so what I want to do going through this is just that I don't want to put a 21st century analysis on this. It's a very violent story. And it's a story of liberation and oppression, but it's also a story of fanaticism and fundamentalism. And no doubt some of the people I'm going to talk about thought that they did not have a choice. The choice was either fanaticism or non-existence, but that's too simplistic. So I want to give you the story of the book of Maccabees that's not in the Torah, and then we will touch briefly, because you know this story, about the miracle of the menorah. As you know, Hanukkah begins tonight at sundown, and it runs until December 26th at sundown. One of the most prominent themes of Hanukkah is the ongoing struggle for liberation in the face of oppression. And this is true, but again, as we unpack this, you'll see that it's not as simple as that. In the case of Hanukkah, the oppression of the Jewish people was so complete that it was attached to both the religion and the nationality. As you know, Judaism is a race as well as a religion. The Syrian Greeks forbade the Jews to practice their religion, declaring mere identification as a Jew to be punishable by death. They would take your life because of the way you self-identify. The question of a strong identity and the freedom to express it became the central themes in the celebration of Hanukkah, but I would venture to say that the Maccabees would have frowned on the way Hanukkah is celebrated now. Little background for us. Unitarian Universalism is technically a Protestant religion. That does not mean we are a Christian denomination. Although there are many Christian UUs, and of course there are many UUs who do not identify as Christian, many of our UU brothers and sisters identify with other major world religions, such as Hindu UUs, obviously Jewish UUs, Buddhist UUs, etc. When I say we are Protestant, I mean it in the sense that if you trace the roots of our tradition back, it goes back to the Protestant Reformation of the 1500s. That's when the teachings of the then very dominant Roman Catholic Church were challenged. People became, enraged about this and started their own churches in protest, hence the name Protestant. However, if you trace it back far enough, you can trace it back far enough. I won't debate this. I think sometimes we stretch it a little bit as Unitarians, but Universalists. But if you can trace our tradition's roots, if you have that mindset, back to Jesus. Here's where it gets interesting, though. While other Protestant religions plant their flag right there at Jesus, Unitarian Universalism looks back even further, and we embrace our Jewish roots. Now, granted, you have to point out the fact that Jesus was a Jewish person. He embraced his Jewish roots as far as we know. We know he didn't rebuke them. He was Jewish, and there's no evidence that he ever thought of himself as starting a new religion. Now we got that out of the way. The bylaws of our denomination list 6 sources. We'll get to Hanukkah. I'm trying to set the table for you. Direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves, and direct experience, which means no one can translate it or interpret it for you. It moves us to a renewal of the spirit and openness to the forces that create and uphold life. The words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, I could just say empire, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Humanist teachings that counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warns us of the idolatries of the spirit. Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life of which we're all a part, and instruct us on how to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And finally, wisdom from the world's religions, including the Jewish and Christian tradition, from which our own Unitarian Universalist tradition developed, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves, right? The rest is commentary. So, it is fitting that we talk about Hanukkah, and it is lovely that Jewish UUs, of which there are many, should maintain their Jewish traditions. We embrace and celebrate the beautiful diversity of our denomination and our sources of wisdom. But make no mistake, Hanukkah is a military story. It's like Star Trek, right? It's all about all this love, and we go where no one's gone before, but these people are in the military. It's about the militarization of space. There are captains and lieutenants and torpedoes, and you get it. This is a military story. An interesting thing about the book of Maccabees is that while they tell a story that is part of the Jewish tradition, and you can find the story in the Christian Bible, you will not find this story in the Torah. The Torah is the sacred canon of Jewish scriptures. This story is non-canonical. It's like the book of Enoch. It's not found in the Christian Bible. It was taken out for political and religious reasons. The story they tell starts with a familiar scenario from ancient times. Once again, the people of Israel are under foreign rule. They are occupied by a foreign army. They have been for hundreds of years, since the Babylonians forced them into exile and destroyed their first temple, the one that had been built by Solomon, the son of King David, 600 years before the Common Era. Now, later the Persians defeated the Babylonians, and being more open to religious diversity, they allowed the Jewish people to rebuild the temple. We give them points for that, but we don't give them all the points. The Babylonians started crucifixion. The Persians went on and copied it, and then of course the Romans perfected it. And so we give you points for being religious, having some religious tolerance, but we do not give you points for nailing people to pieces of wood. Along comes Alexander the Great, a Greek. And then the Greek dynasty known as the Seleucids ruled over the Israelites. So I want to tell you that this story is not so much about the Hebrews and the Greeks, which it is about. It's also about a Jewish civil war. It's about a Jewish civil war. Under the Seleucid Empire, for a time, the people were still allowed to follow their own religions. That was a common Greek practice. But then, there comes along a Seleucid emperor named Antiochus IV. He was a hot mess. He began to crack down on the Israelites, forcing them to follow Greek practices. The story of the Maccabees takes place in the 2nd century BCE under this brother's rule. And he needed a doctor. Antiochus didn't burn down the temple, but maybe he should have. It would have been just as bad. He built an altar to Zeus inside it. The Romans did something like this several hundred years later under Pilate, but that's another story. But what he did, he built an altar to Zeus inside it, and then he ordered the people to make sacrifices to Zeus instead of the God of Israel. Now, an interesting thing about the ancient Near East is that up until the time the Babylonians destroyed the first temple, people pretty much interpreted military victories as an act of the gods. In other words, if I fought against you and you beat me, that means your God was stronger than mine. And I was supposed to acknowledge that and bow down to that. And of course, there were other gods in the land. That's why the Ten Commandments says, you should have no other gods before me. Now, liberal theologians talk about, well, they're the gods of lust and the gods of greed and what have you, but they were gods, period. It was the custom of that part of the world that when one group defeated another, the victors had also defeated the losing side's God. You're supposed to convert. But the people of Israel, well, they're not doing that. They're not doing it. Well, not all of them. And this is where it gets sticky. When their temple was defeated and they were exiled from Babylon, they made the incredible change from being a geographic people in the sense of being a location-based faith, to being a faith that is practiced in their homes and in their hearts. So it's a faith that always goes with the people. There's a verse in the Torah where Yahweh says, I will write my laws upon your heart. For this reason, it would have been impossible for Antiochus to truly stamp out the religion of the Israelites. It was not as easy as banning public practice or ruining the temple. And so there was a mixed reaction among the people. There were some people who said, you know what? Here we are again occupied. Maybe to get a foothold. Maybe to get some political and economic power. Maybe we could fudge a little bit on the religious things. Maybe we could tweak it a bit, right? I mean, everybody doesn't think the same way. Everybody doesn't. I mean, that's all we're saying. Some people went along with Antiochus' demands in public, in private something else. Other people just tried to avoid confrontation on the matter. And some resisted furiously. Among those, the leader of the resistance was a man named Mattathias. It is said that Mattathias' first rebellion occurred when a group of officers in the temple tried to force the people of Israel to conduct a pagan animal sacrifice to Zeus. Mattathias was not having it. He says, well, first of all, he was appalled. He raised his voice. He was screaming. He said, even if all the nations that live under the rule of the king obey him and have chosen to obey his commandment, every one of them abandoning the religion of their ancestors, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. He said, I and my sons and my brothers will continue to live by the covenant of our ancestors. We will not obey the king. We will not turn aside from our religion to the right hand or to the left. And before he could finish his sentence, he couldn't believe his eyes. One of his fellow Israelites stepped forward and did as the king's officers demanded. He made a sacrifice to Zeus. And see, this is where it gets a little crazy. The text says that Mattathias lost it. Well, that's not the words they used. He burned with zeal. He gave vent to a righteous anger. He had a meltdown. He ran and killed the man right there on the altar because this man had the audacity to have a different opinion than Mattathias. Not only did Mattathias kill his brother, he killed one of the king's officers as well. He tore down the altar, and his followers then fled to the hills where they organized themselves in a kind of guerrilla warfare. Now, granted, it wasn't a pretty picture. They watched their non-violent Israelite brothers and sisters who refused to fight against the king. They watched them being killed by the king's soldiers. Do you see how the waters get muddy? Not asking you to judge it, because we're here in 2023. But basically, he's saying, if you don't feel like I feel, then you're my enemy as well. And in response, and we see that all the time now, I mean, this is nothing new. So in response, they decided that they would fight back with all of their might. And they didn't just fight the king, they fought their fellow Jews who were not practicing the same level of resistance. See, it's messy being a human being. Fanaticism is messy. Religion is messy. Mattathias and his followers killed their neighbors almost in an industrial manner, who they felt were not towing the line. They forcibly circumcised all of the uncircumcised Jewish boys they found. Circumcision was one of the Jewish customs that Antiochus had banned. He grew enough in an army that although he could not defeat the entire empire for the rest of his life, he managed to continue his insurgent campaign. Well, they weren't insurgents, they were in their own homeland, but they used their guerrilla tactics. On his deathbed, Mattathias compared his actions to those of his ancestors, and he encouraged his sons to continue what he had started, listing numerous examples from Scripture of those people whose faith was tested and persevered. This is in the book of Maccabees, 1 Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 49. I know you'll look it up later. His son Judas followed in his father's footsteps. He became their next leader. So this sickness goes on to the next generation. But I said I wasn't going to judge. But do you see how it gets a little crazy now? See how it gets crazy? I don't know what I would have done back then. Knowing me, I probably would say, well, let's not make waves. let's not cause a scene. And I got killed anyway. The people called him Judas Maccabee, which means Judas the Hammer. Eventually, in the year 168, Judas succeeded in driving the Seleucids from Jerusalem, a fight which was called the Maccabean Revolt. After the victory, he returned to the defiled temple. He took down the altar to Zeus. He did it all up again. He built a new one according to Jewish law. And he declared an 8-day celebration, and he called it the time of Hanukkah, which means a time of dedication. Now that's the Hanukkah story that's written down in the book of Maccabees. The story that is written down in the Torah, it's written down in the Talmud, another rabbinical record of stories, tells us that something more happened during those 8 days of dedication. The Talmud says that during those 8 days, the people grieved and lamented that they didn't have any consecrated oil for the sacred flame that should burn on the altar. The oil had to be consecrated, and it wasn't a quick process. It had to be made sacred. Actually, it was going to take exactly 8 days. The temple was a mess after all those years of pagan rule, and it turned out that as they were cleaning it, someone found 1 jar of the consecrated oil. 1 jar. Enough for 1 day. You know what happened next. The 1 jar lasted not 1 day, but 8. It was a miracle of faith, and it is commemorated in the lighting of the 8 candles on the menorah. I'm not condoning the violence in the story, I'm telling you the story. There is a tradition in Judaism where texts can be studied and debated. Hanukkah is an event in the life of a people, the people of Israel, who many felt, not all. Some people said we can work this out. Some people did that in Germany. They said we can work this out. But some people thought they were faced with the ultimate sacrifice of non-existence. The choice was to stay true to their communal commitment to their God or to renounce what they believed in, even if it meant physical death. So let us be crystal clear here. Hanukkah is not the Jewish Christmas. This is the basic right. The right to exist is the basic right of all the peoples of the earth. It is not something that needs to be earned. The spirit of Hanukkah, is a spirit of freedom from tyranny and the preservation of the eternal light of all generations of men and women. And so in anticipation of the Jewish Festival of Lights, let us remember, because there are many lessons that can be learned from this story, but one of the lessons is certainly that at times both zealotry, fundamentalism, call it what you will, and refusal to compromise can sometimes be a recipe for destruction. Let us instead be among those who kindle light in a time of darkness, because it is always, always better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Please rise as you are willing and able, and join in singing our closing hymn, a new one, number 221, Light One Candle. Brand new hymn. We will muddle through. All right.
Don't let the light go out.
Very nice. May the love which overcomes all differences and which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all our fears and which reconciles all of who we are, be with us now and just say forevermore. Have a wonderful afternoon. Happy Hanukkah.